About 30 new coaching accounts are being opened in Russia every day. Every day. 30 people wake up in the morning and decide, now I'm going to teach others how to live a good life. And do you know what the most interesting thing is? Most of them were at the same point as their future clients a year ago, only without money, without confidence, and without a transformative experience. But here's a question that for some reason no one asks out loud. Why do we believe them? We don't just listen, we believe. For real, with burning eyes, with a credit card at the ready, with a willingness to rewrite everything we thought about ourselves for 200,000 rubles in 3 months for the awakening. This is not a story about scammers. This is a story about us. It's about what happens to people when reality becomes too complicated and simple answers are too tempting. So, the main question of this video: why do educated, thinking adults massively give money, time, and trust to strangers who promise them mindfulness, flow, and abundance? And why does it work? This is not a question about trustfulness and not about stupidity, because the coach's clients include doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs, people with critical thinking, people who in another situation would be the first to grin, well, it's obviously a divorce. So something else is working here, something deeper. If you ask an ordinary person, why do people go to coaches? He'll say something like, they're probably confused, the midlife crisis, or it's just too much money so they spend it. Another popular answer is, it's all marketing, they just sell well. They say people buy into the beautiful picture on Instagram, the white teeth and stories about Bali. And you know, there's some truth to that. Marketing really works. The beautiful picture really catches. But this explanation is too superficial, because if it was just about marketing, people would buy once and leave disappointed. But they're coming back. They buy again. They recommend it to friends. It means that there is something inside this phenomenon that really works for a person, even if it's not at all as advertised. And the problem is not that the coaches are lying. The problem is that they're telling the truth, just the wrong one.
They are right that most people live on autopilot. You're right that many people don't ask themselves important questions. You are right that mindfulness is useful, that goals need to be formulated, that fears prevent you from acting. It's all true, confirmed by psychology, philosophy, and common sense. But then there is a substitution, quiet, almost invisible. The truth is transformed into a promise. Become aware of yourself and success will come. Remove the blocks and the money will flow like a river. Live in the flow and the universe will support you. And here, stop, because it's not psychology anymore. This is magical thinking in an expensive package. It is the belief that inner work automatically changes external circumstances, that if you think right, reality will adjust to suit you. The problem is that it doesn't work like that. More precisely, it works, but in a completely different way than it sells. Let's start with the basics. Let's start with what's going on in the head of the person who goes to the coach. There is a psychological phenomenon called intolerance to uncertainty. This is when a person physically cannot calmly exist in the state of I do not know what will happen next. The brain perceives uncertainty as a threat, literally, at the level of neural reactions. Research shows that people will prefer a guaranteed bad outcome to an accidental good one, because certainty is soothing, even if it's the certainty of a bad thing. Now imagine a modern person in 2026. The economy is unstable, career paths are blurred, family scenarios are broken, the social roles are mixed up. The future looks like a fog. And then a man appears who says, I know the way. I went through it myself. Trust me, and the fog will clear. This is not just a course sale. It is an antidote to unbearable uncertainty. And the brain says, take it. You are welcome, at any cost. Do you think this is a new phenomenon? Are coaches a modern invention? In the 17th and 18th centuries, there was a phenomenon of spiritual mentors in Europe, people who for money or donations gave rich citizens a sense of a special path, a special choice, and special access to the truth. It was called in different ways: alchemists, mystics, Freemasons, pietists. In the 19th century, the new age of the first wave flourished in America: spiritualism, theosophy, and Christian Science. Mary Baker Eddy literally sold people the idea that illnesses are wrong thoughts and right thinking will heal the body. She had hundreds of thousands of followers, educated people, the wealthy. In the 1950s and 60s, Dale Carnegie and his followers. In the 1980s, there was the human potential movement, Werner Erhard's EST seminars, where people were literally locked in a room for several days and their identity was broken in order to be reassembled.
This is not a criticism of religion or philosophy. This is an observation. Each generation invents its own version of the same product. The name is changing, the packaging is changing, the mechanism is not. There has always been a demand for guides through the fog. They just used to be called something else. Now, about today, and about the money. According to research agencies, the global coaching market exceeded $20 billion in 2025. For comparison, this is more than the professional sports market in many countries. According to estimates by various analysts, the annual turnover of infobusiness and coaching in the Russian-speaking segment of the internet alone is several tens of billions of rubles. But here's what's interesting. Who earns the most? Not those who teach psychology, not the ones who give real skills. Those who sell personality transformation earn the most. The feeling of being chosen, belonging to the awakened ones. Why? Because it cannot be measured, it cannot be refuted. You can't return the money with the words, "There was no transformation," because you can always say, "So you're not ready yet, you're resisting, you won't let go." It's an ingenious business model, a product that works by definition because its absence is also part of the product. And now let's go a little further, because there is something that is not usually talked about. In the 2010s, large corporations began to massively introduce mindfulness practices for their employees. Google, Apple, Goldman Sachs. Meditation in the office, mindfulness courses, coaches for managers. Sounds progressive, right? Caring for employees, investing in people. But researcher Ron Purser wrote a book about this, Mindfulness, where he showed that corporate awareness teaches a person not to change circumstances, but to adapt better to them. Not to deal with stress, but to accept stress is normal. Not to ask questions of the system, but to find inner peace within the system. In other words, awareness turns into a management tool. A happy, centered employee asks fewer uncomfortable questions. He takes the overload more calmly. He quits less often. This is not a conspiracy in the literal sense, but this is no coincidence. When an ideology helps a system reproduce itself, the system supports it, financially, media-based, institutionally. And here's the question: who really benefits from you looking for the problem inside yourself and not outside? Now let's get out of the coach's office and look at the bigger picture. What happens to society when millions of people turn inward at the same time, seeking explanations for their lives?
First, atomization. When I believe that my problems are my internal blocks, I stop looking for their causes in economics, politics, and social structures. I'm becoming less politically active, less inclined to collective action, more engaged in his own transformation. Second, the inflation of responsibility. The culture of coaching has created a new kind of guilt, the guilt of one's own unhappiness. Previously, poverty was explained by circumstances. Now it's a lack of awareness. Depression used to be a disease. Now it's an untreated injury that you have to heal yourself. This is a huge shift. Third, the market of meanings. The traditional institutions of meaning formation, religion, the state, the family, and science, have lost their monopoly. People are hungry for meaning. It feels like their lives aren't just a series of random events, and coaching fills this vacuum. It gives a narrative, way, chosenness. Fourth, the new elite. Previously, status was determined by wealth, education, and origin. Now there's a new marker, the level of awareness. I've been working with a psychologist for 3 years. I went on a retreat in Nepal. My coach says, this is a new social language, a new hierarchy. The new inequality is only now spiritual. And here's what's important to understand. None of this is an accident. This is a response to specific historical conditions, to destroy old structures, to accelerate changes, to information overload. People don't get stupid. People look for resilience wherever they can find it. And now, the most important thing. That's what it was all about. We used to think that coaches sell knowledge, or skills, or techniques. That's not what they're selling. They sell belonging to the explanation. Think about it. When a person pays 200,000 rubles for a transformation course, he does not buy tools. He buys a version of reality in which his life has meaning, in which his past is explained, in which his future is predictable, in which he is not a victim of circumstances, but the hero of his own path. This is an incredibly valuable item, literally priceless, because the alternative is to live in a world where there is no ready explanation, where randomness is real, where your efforts don't guarantee results, where there is death, there may be no meaning. The coach sells protection against this horror. And here's the paradox. The more educated a person is, the more acutely he feels the uncertainty of the world, the more he needs protection, the more attractive a beautifully packaged explanation system becomes. That is why coaching clients are not naive people. That is why there are so many smart, critically minded professionals among them. They didn't turn off the mind. They used reason to find the best explanation available and bought it. Coaching is not a scam or a rescue. It's a symptom of a world in which traditional meaning systems can no longer cope. The church, the state, science, each of them at different times promise to explain to a person why he lives. Each of them lost their trust at some stage, and into that vacuum came people with microphones, beautiful stories, and a very clear offer. I know the way. Let's go. We have not become more naive. We have become more lonely in our uncertainty, and these are fundamentally different things. I don't want to end this video with the words, "Don't go to the coaches," or "This is all a hoax." That would be too easy, and it's just as untrue as the opposite. Because sometimes talking to a real person who sincerely believes in what he's saying really changes something inside. Sometimes a correctly asked question is more expensive than any kind of education. But here's what I want to leave you with. Every time you feel an irresistible urge to pay someone to explain your life, ask yourself, am I looking for a tool or am I looking for protection from uncertainty? Because these are different needs and they are satisfied in different ways. Tools are available for free, in books, in conversations, in practice. But protection from uncertainty is another story. You can't buy it. You can only work it out, gradually, painfully, alone or with people who don't charge money for it. And the last question, not a rhetorical one, but a real one. If you had enough self-confidence not to need an explanation, what would you do with your life then? Think about it.